Hello, and welcome to the Solving ME Together remote congressional meeting training. This is our only webinar training for ME/CFS Advocacy 2020 this year. My name is Emily Taylor. I'm so pleased to walk you through all this process, and I wanted to welcome you all. I hope you are safe and well in this quarantine time, and really grateful for everyone working with us for ME/CFS Advocacy Week this year online. We have transitioned what is normally an in-person event focused in Washington, D.C. to entirely remote events. And so we're sort of, as Carol Head would say, we're building the plane while we're in it. So we're learning our technological capacity as we go. So this process has been amazing and interesting and challenging. And I just, again, wanted to thank everyone here for being a part of that and for sticking with us as we've made this transition. And let us know how we do. This is our first year doing this new format, and let us know what works, let us know what doesn't, and we'll be excited to hopefully offer these new capacities in future years. So as I said, my name is Emily Taylor. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Community Relations for the Solve ME/CFS Initiative. I'm joined today by our prime advocacy partner, Lincoln Clapper, who we are so fortunate to have. Lincoln has been working with us for 3 years now in organizing Advocacy Day, and him and his team have been absolutely stellar. And we are grateful to them for being such wonderful partners, and particularly for understanding and accommodating the many needs of the ME/CFS community, which his team has been exceptional at. Thank you, Lincoln, and thank you all of you for being part of ME/CFS Advocacy Week. Just a quick look at our agenda for our conversation today. This is a 2-hour training, but again, it is recorded, so I encourage you, if you start fading or just if it gets too much, feel free to sign off, and you can always log back in on the YouTube video later to follow up. We have kind of 3 parts of our presentation today. The first is remote meetings, kind of what to expect, best practices, and how to conduct your meetings in a new remote phone-based format. The second is kind of your schedule and logistics overview. The folks who this training is intended for are the folks who registered and are participating for ME/CFS Advocacy Day congressional meetings by phone. So there's a lot of information here, and it's highly directed to that audience. We have over 340 people participating at ME/CFS Advocacy Week this year, our biggest numbers ever, and we're really excited to give you all the information to help your meetings be a success. And lastly is, of course, I have been getting a lot of questions. What are we asking for? What is our purpose for ME/CFS Advocacy Week this year? And I will dive into that with our asks, our advocacy strategy, and our meeting priorities. We'll take questions after each section, and of course, we'll have questions as well at the end. So now it is my pleasure to turn it over to Lincoln, who I feel like needs no introduction, but just again wanted to express gratitude to you and your team. Shout outs especially to Bobby and Cara, who have been amazing. And Lincoln, I'll be passing over the presentation control to you, and you can take it from there.
All right, thank you. Let me make sure I got this correct.
You might need to double click. Oh, too much click.
Oh, I see it. Oh, okay, I think there's a lag there. Let me try and go back.
Oh, here, I'll try and help with that a little bit. Oh, there we go. All right, all yours.
Okay. All right. If I have any issues, Emily, you can just step. I'll just tell you to hit next slide, and we can just go from there.
Will do.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us on this webinar. My name is Lincoln Clapper. I'm one of the directors here at Prime Advocacy. We've had the pleasure of working with Solve ME/CFS for the last 3 years now. We helped in 2018 last year, and then this is year 3. Given the unfortunate circumstances that have come, across the world, apparently in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, we are now converting this Advocacy Day to a virtual event. And this is something we're doing with a lot of our clients right now. This is nothing that's unusual. And quite frankly, I feel like it's innovative for our clients to take advantage of this, because there are so many groups who are canceling right now and are not getting their message to Capitol Hill that they are going to get overlooked when it comes to appropriations, other bills. Congress is not going to stop legislating just because of this crisis. So I applaud all of you for participating in this event, and I really think it's going to pay huge dividends for your organization in 2020 and 2021 especially. In terms of prepping you for next Tuesday, I usually give a broader overview of an advocacy training presentation. This is going to be a little bit more succinct since it's going to be over conference calls, but I feel like there was still some important points here to cover, especially given the huge increase in attendance. Usually we have about 150 or so attendees each year, and as of today, we're over 300. So given the increase, like I said, I felt like it was really important to get this presentation out to you all. I know you've probably, if you've been if you come in the last couple of years, you've heard this from me before, but I really feel like it's a great refresher, even if you've been to Capitol Hill several times, and as well as if this is your very first time, welcome. And this is really, we'll just give you realistic expectations walking into next Tuesday so you're prepared. So jumping into it, what to expect, right? There is a possibility that you will not be speaking with a member of Congress. The House is in recess. The Senate is now in recess. They were in session last week. It's been very fluid here in DC, as you can imagine, just with all the different COVID legislation. But both chambers are out. And so more than likely, the vast majority of your meetings are going to be with staff based here in DC. That does not mean that your schedule is irrelevant at all. In fact, it's the complete opposite. And this is something that I spend a lot of time on because the staffer is extremely important to the legislative process. These people are really the staff who push and build and write the legislation, right? The members of Congress don't do that. They vote, essentially. That's what they do. They advocate for whether they're for or against it, and they vote on it. They don't push it in the back office rooms. So speaking with staff, developing relationships with staff is incredibly to your organization's advocacy efforts, not only this year, but in years to come. So that being said, for those of you who have not been to Capitol Hill, able to tell this over the phone, but more than likely you will be speaking with somebody who's 25 to 35 years old. And that is not something that you are not being disrespected if you feel like you hear a kid on the other line by their tone of voice, similar to mine. That is just the nature of Capitol Hill. That's just how old everybody is who works on Capitol Hill, and that's the reality. On the Senate side, you have more senior staff in terms of quote unquote professional age, but especially on the House side, vast majority of staff are 25 to 35 years old. Now, just because you're speaking with a younger person does not mean that they're not qualified or they don't understand your issues. We've passed along all of your talking points, all of your briefing material to them ahead of time. So they'll be up to speed in terms of what you are going to talk about. And additionally, the staffer you're speaking with covers your issue areas in their legislative portfolio. So you're not going to be speaking with somebody who covers tax or immigration, right? You will be speaking with staff who covers healthcare. So that's really that's why it's so important to speak with staff, because they're going to understand your issues a lot more in depth than anybody else in the office. So please take every meeting seriously. It's all very important to your advocacy day as a whole. Now, if you are speaking with a member tomorrow on Tuesday, obviously, you want to approach that in the same way. You want to give them the key points, but then you're going to want to follow up with the staffer who will be joining them on the call. It will most likely be their healthcare staff or their legislative director. But don't be surprised if you're meeting with staff. The point is, these are critical points of contact in each office that you want to build relationships with. Don't be surprised if the meeting starts a little late or ends early. This may not apply to Tuesday because this generally more applies to the day-to-day run-of-the-mill in person, just with how everything's are going. Because it's a recess week, you can expect the meetings to start on time for the most part. If they do get moved or end early or possibly start a little bit late, expect that though. It could, they still keep regular legislative work. They're taking other meetings with other advocacy groups, other staff, other committee, back-end committee meetings to prep for when they come back in session. So just stay on your feet. Don't freak out if it starts a little later or if the time gets moved. We'll be there as your point of contact every step of the way. None of you. Perfect. One strategy we like to really advocate for is the 3 B's. Be brief, be brilliant, and be done. These meeting requests were scheduled in 15-minute increments. We keep the template the same as if you were here in person, only because this is just how Capitol Hill organizes their schedules. You are not going to get a meeting if you request 30 minutes or 45 minutes. This is not a corporate sitting. More often than not, your meetings will go longer than that because this is a recess week, as I mentioned earlier. So staff should be a little bit more flexible in terms of allotting time. But for your own planning and preparation, in terms of you being able to advocate your talking points, you need to prepare that the meeting will only be 15 minutes. And so that is something that you should really take into account this weekend as you start to prep and prepare for Tuesday. I won't dive into this specifically as the Solve ME team will be going over this later, but those are your 4 main talking points for this year. And what we like to say is don't get bogged down with the details. What I mean by that is you don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of this needs to be inserted in section 2, line B of this appropriations bill, et cetera, et cetera. Just stick to the overarching talking points. That is really where you're going to make the most impact with your conversations. And since I don't, been speaking with Emily, and I don't really think that's going to be an issue, but we do, that's just a good practice. Don't worry about referencing certain items or lines or subcommittee hearings or things like that. Just stick to the broader points here, and then Emily will be able to explain anything more specific outside of this realm. Be nice. You can call this a bonus B, if you will. And I know this sounds redundant and it might sound childish, but you would be shocked at the thousands and thousands of meetings that we've scheduled, the amount of feedback that we get from congressional offices after the advocacy day is over about how rude people were. And we started including this in our presentation because we really want we have your best interest at heart here. And you need to understand, especially in a time like this, that staffers are have a hybrid. They're wearing multiple hats now in terms of being caseworkers for people in their district because of the economic impact. And so they're more than likely only fielding phone calls that are have people yelling at them on the other end of the phone. And so the last thing that they want is to be getting yelled at from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then hop on a 1:30 call with you and it get aggressive or it get rude, right? So just keep that in the back of your mind. Nobody calls their representative or senator to tell them, hey, you're doing a great job, keep it up. Most of the time it's something on the other end of the spectrum. So just keep that in mind. Remember, you're building long-term relationships here. If the office isn't able to help you in terms of what you're here to talk about or maybe proceed with any support, you never know. Maybe next year they can. So you don't ever want to burn that bridge. So just be nice overall. Some general meeting tips here. Please don't miss a scheduled meeting. That will reflect extremely poorly on your organization. There will be a phone number listed in your talking point section. If for some reason something comes up on Tuesday and you know you're not going to be able to participate in this call, call that number and we will make sure to get it taken care of with the office. As long as they're given a heads up, really there's no problem at all. And I'm talking even a 30-minute or 15-minute heads up. Really, any issue that comes up, just make sure to apprise us of that information and we'll relay it to Capitol Hill for you. Don't try to reschedule the meeting on your own because a lot of the groups are sometimes intertwined with other meetings. And so if you try to reschedule your meeting, you might double book somebody else who you're not aware of may also be joining that meeting down the line. So most importantly, just contact the Prime Advocacy number and we will make sure to get it taken care of. Offices really do have a long memory in terms of bad scheduling experiences, and you really don't want that to be your MO. I feel like the Solve ME as a group as a whole has done a fantastic job the last couple of years in doing that. But again, for everyone who's kind of new to this, if you're not going to be able to participate in any of your meetings, or even one or two of them, but you can attend the other two, just call that number and we'll make sure to get it taken care of. And that number will be included tomorrow. So if you've already looked at your schedule and you see something, don't panic, where we'll be onboarding that contact information tomorrow. In terms of when you engage the conversation with the staffer, one thing we just really hark on is to stay on message, right? You only have 15 minutes. Don't forget that. Introduce yourself, explain why Solve ME CFS is here to speak today, and then tell your story. And you really want to emphasize the impact that ME CFS has on you, your healthcare system, and other constituents in your district. And that will really grab the attention of the staffer from the get-go, rather than, like I said, bogging it down with details earlier. One additional strategy that we like to advocate for is the bluff technique. And what I mean by that is by calling their bluff. So after you introduce yourself, you share your story, what you're here to talk about, what your talking points are, making the ask. Don't be afraid to then finish the conversation before you turn it back over to the staffer to say, can your office support us? Can your boss, if you're speaking to a staffer, can your boss support these issues, or can they, can they be a resource for us? Totally appropriate to ask that. Everybody who meets with a member of Congress office, they're there because they need something from them, right? We had a guest speaker a couple years ago for a different client, a member of Congress come, and I'll never forget it. It was quite funny, but he basically said the thing that he hates the most is when people come in and they diddle-daddle around and have small talk for 10 minutes, because he says I have to cut them off and say, okay, what do you need from me? And it sounds aggressive to the outside world, but literally that is what they're there for. They want to know what you need because they're there to help you. And so if you don't tell them what you specifically need from them, then your conversation is going to be a waste of time. So go ahead and call their bluff, ask them if they can support this, if they can be a resource for you, and they'll more than likely tell you yes or no. Some of them may say they can't answer that right now, and you can take that as deflecting, but I really would encourage you not to be upset by that. That's really a professional response, in my opinion, because they don't want to get themselves in trouble by speaking for the member without running it by their own boss. So if they come back with they're not sure answer, totally okay. That gives you a better reason to follow up in 2 weeks, right? It gives you a good reason to touch base and see if they were able to run that by their team. So either way, don't feel awkward if you want to put them on the position in terms of choosing one side or the other. Totally appropriate. Speak plainly. I talked about this a bit earlier. Don't get bogged down in the details. You'll have some time this weekend to go through your talking points and see, which ones correlate best for your story, your real world experience, because your real world experience is really what's going to be most important and resonate most with the staffer after the call, right? You want to be able to leave an impact with them that when they walk away, they say, wow, that was really powerful. That way, when you follow up in 2 weeks, next month, later this year, or you come back again next year, they will remember you. So you want to talk about something that's affects you on a day-to-day basis. And I know you all will be able to do this because you're the experts in this Solve ME CFS area. You live with it every day. You have family that live with it every day. You have neighbors and friends that have it. So your input in your real world examples are really going to make this conversation go. So really don't get bogged down in the details. I know I said it earlier, but I want to mention it again. Stick to the real world examples. Tell your true story. You are the experts in this area. You really are. So in terms of establishing roles for these conversations, if you've already logged into your schedule and looked at it, you'll notice a lot of the meetings are capped at around 5 attendees. Some may have a bit more. This is because a lot of offices have policies on larger conference calls. So from some of you that are from larger states like California or Florida or Texas or New York, you may see that you're not in your Senate meetings, and that is by design from the office policy. So we have to work with them on that. We've worked with Emily and her team in terms of the attendees who are going to be part of those calls. So if you see like you're not in your Senate meetings, that's by design. When you do look at your schedule, check the start time. Make sure to call in 5 minutes prior to that start time. And so every attendee should be calling into that conference line and access code 5 minutes early in order to talk amongst yourselves on who's going to open up the conversation, or who's going to do the majority of the talking, or who feels like they need to bring in a real world example. I would emphasize that the constituent in each meeting do most of the talking. A lot of you are paired with other constituents, and so that's why we're saying to call in 5 minutes prior, so you can devise a clear strategy. That way you're not talking over each other. Now, if this is, there is a power in numbers thing. So what I mean by that is, if there are 4 or 5 constituents on the call, don't feel like everybody needs to speak if you aren't comfortable. As long as you address yourselves and introduce yourselves, and they know there's 5 constituents on this call, that's all you need. And so if one person feels like they can take it from there, or if the group feels like they would rather have one kind of, group captain, if you will, lead the call, totally appropriate. So don't feel pressured to speaking if you're not comfortable, as long as everybody knows, as long as the staffer knows about everyone on the call. And they do. They have the attendee list ahead of time, but just to reinforce it when you begin the conversation will really help drive the meeting. Let's see here. Don't assume the staff know too little or too much about your topic. What I mean by that is, you are meeting with a healthcare staffer, yes. Are they familiar with ME/CFS? Possibly, possibly not. They may be new to the role, right? So a great way to start from the bottom and work your way up, because again, you only have 15 minutes and you want to be able to explain everything to them clearly, is open up with, are you familiar with ME/CFS? Very easy question, yes or no, right? If they say yes, then you can expand upon that. Oh, great. Well, how familiar are you with it? They'll give you an answer, and from there, that will give you a good starting point in terms of explaining the condition and explaining the consequences, and then going into your real world examples. If they say no, you obviously are the experts. You will know then how to start from the bottom, build up within, probably 3 to 4 minutes, a nice story about how to convey the conditions, how it affects you, your neighbors, your family, your friends, and then you can transition from there into the talking points. If they are not familiar with it, you will end up more than likely doing the majority of the talking, which is okay, because at that point you want this to be extremely educational for the staffer. Because if they're not aware of what this is, again, you're going to be the expert, and so they're going to be relying on you for all the information. So don't assume they know too much as well, and that's what I mean by going on the other side of this. Don't just jump into your talking points and assume that they've already had a background check on this and are well aware. Start from the bottom, work your way up with questions, and you'll know by their responses kind of where to jump ahead, or maybe to jump backwards a little bit and start from the beginning. Keeping the relationship. So always offer to be a resource for the staffer, right? They're always looking for constituents who are experts in their field, and there's none better than you guys. So at the end of the call, and I'll get into this later, but always offer to be a resource for them. You want to try to frame that issue in terms of helping the constituency as a larger whole, right? Because if you can frame your issues about the impact that this has on the district, that's going to be a big takeaway from them in addition to your story. Always thank them for their time. You know, sometimes they will ask to send additional information, and you always want to get you want to jot those requests down and get that information to them as soon as possible. But if not, a great way to touch base is about 1 to 2 weeks after. Email the staffer, thank them for their time. Try to set a follow-up meeting, right? Try to set a follow-up action item that they can get back to you on. Something small that's not going to be a huge lift, something that you can do to be a resource for them and making their job easier. That is really where you will impact their life as a staffer and impact your work for the Solve ME/CFS organization. Social media. Got some previous clients got some unique questions about this. I truly think social media is still a huge factor, even though this is a virtual event, because members of Congress are starving for positive content right now, and it's an election year. So they're looking for stuff to retweet. They're looking for stuff to repost. Oh, whoops. Let me go back one, sorry. They're looking for stuff to repost. They also want to show their constituency that they're still working, right? Even though it's a recess week, they want to be able to show that they're still fielding constituent meetings, they're still fielding requests, they're still doing their job, right? So make their job easy for them. Go on Twitter, go on Facebook, tag the member, write a short tweet, pretty simple tweet. This is an example that I've laid out here for you. Big thank you to Legislative Aide John Doe from @RepWhoever. You can look them up on Twitter. They're pretty easy to find. Office for taking the time to speak with us via conference call about the effects COVID-19 has on the ME/CFS community. Obviously, you can take the script and play with it how you want. That was just a sample that fits within the character limit as well. I've already tested it out. So if you want to use that, feel free to go ahead. But really, if you have a Twitter or a Facebook, talk about each meeting you had on Twitter and Facebook. You'd be shocked at the social media attention you'll get if everybody plays their part. So I really think it could be a huge bonus to your group's advocacy day if everybody can engage on social media. Let's see. There we go. Calling card. Always leave your contact info before you get off the call. You know, make sure the staffer has your names and your emails. Don't ever say we'll see you next year, because that just sounds like you're checking a box, right? You want to follow up in a few weeks, as I mentioned earlier. Say, hey, I'll shoot you an email here in a week or two to circle back. That shows that you're engaged. That shows that you're really willing to be a resource, because there are so many groups that come and they make this such a marketing event, and it's really a waste of time in terms of them just showing up and having a good time. They're not really making an impact. So you don't want to get branded as that group. You want to be total engagement 12 months a year, right? So don't say see you next year, say you follow up in a few weeks, and get their email and cell phone and a cell phone number before you get off the call as well. Again, just exchange contact information, give them your cell. They more than likely will never call you, but it shows a level of intimacy that you really want to be involved in the process and you really want to be a resource for them. So just exchange contact info, circle back with them, and that's really going to help building that relationship with that staffer in the months ahead. So we will open it up to questions. Emily, I think I'll let you take it from here. I don't know if there was anything that came across the wire during the presentation.
Absolutely. Well, we had some great questions coming in, many of which we'll get to when I take over and we dive into the ME/CFS specific asks. Say that 5 times fast. Yeah. Let's see. Just looking over the questions, I think there's some questions about meeting others in your group beforehand. So I just want to clarify that we have very, very strict privacy policies here at SolveME to protect your information and protect your data, especially because, you know, we have a registry, and so some information is you know, relevant to patient health, and so we have very strict policies on that. So we cannot share any confidential information of your group participants without their permission. That includes phone number or email or ways to get in touch. But we don't want you to not be able to coordinate. So again, we have set up a Facebook group, which is a good opportunity for you to connect. It is public, so I recommend being careful about what sort of private information you share on the public forums, but you can always find your folks that way. And again, and also we have our office hours tomorrow, which is a good opportunity to connect with your group as well. And we'll be sending out some follow-ups for some guidance about time zones, because we're going to try and focus our time for everybody in each time zone to kind of coalesce around the same time. So that hopefully will answer that concern. And actually, Lincoln, if you want to talk a little bit about when folks call in 5 minutes early, maybe what that conversation could look like in that short pre-planning time.
Yeah, so call in 5 minutes early. Everybody hops on the call. You know, you'll be able to see on your schedule the other attendees who are on the call with you. So just take a quick roll call. You know, is Bob here? Is John here? Is Terry here, et cetera? Okay, we're all here. Identify who would like to open up the conversation. I think that would be the most important to start, because when the staffer joins, you don't want all 4 or 5 of you to say hi, hi, hi at once, right? You could say, hey, this is Lincoln. I'm on the line with Terry, Bob, and Joe. We're all here and we're ready to start the meeting. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. And then you can all go from there. You can also have some prep time in terms of, hey, I'm going to open up the conversation. I'm going to introduce everybody, and I'm going to pass it to Bob, and then he's going to take it from there, since he's the constituent, and he's going to jump into seeing where staffer Joe is at in terms of his knowledge of ME/CFS, and then go from there. So I think that would be the best way to start. Once you kind of figure out who's going to speak first, the rest will really take care of itself.
Wonderful, thank you, Lincoln. One other question we got is why are we doing conference calls and not Zoom calls? That's an excellent question. Initially, when we were initiating this transition, Lincoln and I had a lot of conversations about the different platforms and mechanisms we could potentially use. And ultimately, the biggest snag that, and again, Lincoln, thank you for pointing this out, I had no idea that because most staffer laptops are used in a congressional office and sometimes in you know, committee affairs offices or like very places of confidential information, a lot of them don't have cameras. And I didn't realize this, but there are very, very few laptops or camera devices allowed in congressional offices. So I was actually a big proponent of using our Zoom platform for these meetings, and Lincoln advised me that actually most folks don't have cameras and that call-in is the preferred mechanism for congressional staff. So that's why we chose to go in that direction.
Yeah, so Congress, for those of you who have never been there before, is very archaic in a technological standpoint. And so a lot of them did not even have laptops before this outbreak occurred. And so they had to quickly arm every office with the appropriate technology to work from home. And so they go into their reserves, and these laptops haven't been updated in years. And so that's primarily the reason why there are not Zoom video calls. Additionally, as I mentioned in the beginning, for those that do have their own laptops, or they have we're able to get laptops that do have a camera, there's not much of an appetite for them to take video calls, because as I mentioned earlier, the majority of the people you're speaking with tomorrow are 25 to 35-year-old, and quite frankly, there's not much of an appetite for them to get dressed and put makeup on or put on a collared shirt and hop on a video call. You know, to be quite frank, I'm sitting here in sweatpants, you know, doing this conversation with you guys. So that is, when you couple that with the archaic technology, those are the two roadblocks that unfortunately you're not going to be able to get over. But that's primarily the reason why.
Thank you, Lincoln. I'll admit I'm a member of the Sweatpants Club as well right now. It's a really comfy club. So just a couple more questions. So I'm seeing a lot of questions that refer to the details of the numbers, the asks, the information. Again, we're going to be getting to that in just a few minutes. Right now, we're just kind of focusing on high-level best practices for your meetings. And I'm also seeing a lot of questions about how the platform works, which is exactly what we're getting to next. So just one more question I'm going to take before we jump into that. Is that okay, Lincoln?
Yep.
So one question was about the identifying the groups and why only 5 people. And there's a couple different reasons for that. And this was a decision that we made on the Solve ME side, and Lincoln's has been really helpful in executing. Ultimately, as you've noticed with calls, for those of you who've been taking more conference calls or video calls during the quarantine, there can be feedback, there can be technical issues. The more lines you add, the more sort of technical challenges you end up facing. So that was one of the main reasons for that. And so some of you may notice that your groups actually have more than 5 people, but those are because there are 5 often individuals who are in the same household who will be sharing a line. So that was the goal, was to try to keep 5 phone lines as the max for the best efficiency of the meeting. And I'll be talking a little bit more about how team leads can help facilitate. And as Lincoln said, we don't want people talking over each other, or I think we've all had that moment of like, oh, no, you go. I mean, you go. No, I'll go. Okay. Also trying to, like, again, I think that's something that we all are collectively getting better at as we've transitioned to remote. So I think these are some of the growing pains that we'll iron out as we become more proficient in our remote platforms. But that's a big part of the reasons why we made those decisions. So with that, I know there's a lot more questions, and I can see there's a big eagerness for us to get to the last part of the presentation. So Lincoln, why don't you take it away with the walkthrough of the system for everyone's individualized schedules?
Sure. Let's move ahead here. Okay, so you should have all received some instructions about how to access your schedule. If you haven't, no big deal. I'm going to walk you through it right now. So the primary platform that you need to use to get your schedule is a laptop, a desktop, or a tablet. This platform, in terms of getting your schedule, is also accessible on your phone, and primarily we do use it that way. If you were with us last year, you did use it, but please do not use it on your phone this year, because we don't want you to have to be dialing in and also looking at your schedule at the same time, right? It's going to be a much more efficient flow to your day if you just have your schedule open on your computer, and then you can call in from your phone. So you can log into your schedule. You can open up any browser, Chrome, Firefox, etc. You're going to enter in that web address, clients.primeadvocacy.com/attendee/login, and then you're going to enter your email address that you registered with to access your schedule. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the larger meetings, in terms of larger constituency meetings, have been capped at a certain attendance totals, and that's because of primarily the office rules, and then also a combination of technological aspects that Emily has already mentioned. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the status of each of your meetings. That'll be color-coded, and I'm going to run through an example here in a minute on how to log in. So don't feel like I'm going to leave you hanging here. But in the status, you'll see if it's confirmed or still pending. The conference call line and access code will be in the location field, given that you won't be at a physical location. So we felt like that was the most appropriate place to put the information. And this is probably the most important point on this slide, and I really want you all to pay attention to this. But you'll notice when you do log in, a lot of your meeting times are offset by 5 minutes, meaning we normally schedule meetings, 12, 12:15, 12:30, 12:45, 1 o'clock, etc. You will see meetings on there for 11:55 a.m. This is intentional, and this is the time your meeting starts. This is done because across all the platforms, whether it's Zoom or Cisco WebEx or Skype or Microsoft Teams, they're all struggling with bandwidth issues. And for those of you who have been on conference calls, et cetera, you've probably experienced that, right? Probably some busy tones, maybe some connectivity issues. In order to counter that, we've moved all the meetings back 5 minutes, as many as we can. That way you're not all calling in as the rest of the country, the same time the rest of the country is at noon. You're calling in at 11:55. And that has really, this is something we've been doing since March. And this is something we preemptively put in place, and it's worked out tremendously well.
Oh, Lincoln, are you still there? I think my sound cut out. Lincoln, I think we may have lost you. Oh, okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and jump in there because I think we may have lost Lincoln. I think he lost his internet because it's showing that he just dropped off the call. So, well, I'll just pick it up from here. So again, these are Prime Advocacy tools that we're using, and so just kind of walking through how these tools operate on your experience on the user end. So again, really want to emphasize the purposeful offsetting by 5 minutes of our meeting times. This is both for technological reasons, so that your calls will be as clear and crisp and as possible. We don't have any tech problems like we just had losing Lincoln. And oh, are you back?
Sorry, yeah, my wife was out there for a second.
No worries. Like I said, we're learning as we go with a lot of these technological transitions to remote.
Where did I leave you?
Actually, it just kind of wrapped up about the 5 minute offset and the technological benefits.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's intentional. You'll notice that on all of your schedules. Don't freak out. That's not a typo. That is the time your meeting starts. And we'll get into the last slide here. So if you see your call time is at 11:55, you need to call in 5 minutes prior, as I mentioned earlier. This is so you can talk with your group about who's going to open up the conversation and get a strategy. All of those times you're looking at when you log in are in Eastern Standard Time. So if you live outside the East Coast, please take some time and do some conversion in terms of when you need to call in locally, because the times you're looking at are all Eastern Standard Time, and I can't emphasize that enough. Eastern Standard Time is what your schedule is set as. Again, if you call in at a 2:30 or a 3 o'clock, top of the hour, bottom of the hour, and you get a busy tone initially, don't freak out. Just keep redialing. Keep redialing. You'll get through. The staff in the office are aware of this. It's very few and far in between, but just keep redialing. You will eventually get through. I promise you that. Again, all the calls are scheduled for 15 minutes. They're probably going to go a little bit longer. Don't be surprised if they do, but just anticipate that they're all 15-minute slots. You'll be able to provide some feedback on how your meetings went in the meeting notes section. And I'll be able to show you an example of that here, but it's really critical you record feedback on what you discussed, action items that the government affairs team needs to follow up with, any feedback at all. I mean, there's no character limit, so really let it rip on your keyboard and talk about how the meeting went. And last but not least, there will be a help number in the talking point section to call if you need to get a hold of us. If you have trouble logging in, or if you need to reschedule, or if there's any issues at all in terms of you not being able to make the meeting. Now, I'm going to actually walk you through how to log in. So Emily, do you want to?
We're ready.
Okay. No,
all right, we're transitioning to you as the presenter, and you can be able to share your screen from there.
Okay, let me know when you can see it. Let me know when you're able to see everything.
I'm seeing a beautiful snow white mountainscape on my screen, so I think we're good. You're all set.
Okay, so I'm going to open up my Chrome. Nope, I'm going to put this down here for now. Okay, so I'm going to open up my Chrome. I'm going to go to clients.primeadvocacy.com/attendee/login. And you'll know you're at the right place when there's only one field. It should just be your email address. So I'm going to type in my email address here. And click continue. Now, for those of you who have been with us before, you will see different options here. You're going to see your 2019 schedule and your 2018 schedule. For those of you, this is your first time, you won't see this at all. It will just shoot you right into your schedule. Make sure you click on the 2020 schedule. I know that sounds redundant, but please just take a minute to look at your screen and make sure you click on the 2020 schedule. Now, when you click on it, you'll see your schedule for the day. As I mentioned earlier, in the upper right-hand corner here, you'll see the status of your meeting. So this is a confirmed meeting with Representative Blaine Luetkemeyer, and I'll be speaking with Legislative Assistant Josiah Bowman. Here's the dial-in number. I'm going to call 1-253-215-8782. And then when prompted, this is your access code. Don't forget the hashtag or the pound sign. The automated system will tell you that as well, but we put it in there just as a reminder. You'll see some information here about the legislator, the team lead, who's going to be leading the call or initiating the conversation, so to speak, will be displayed here. Don't worry about the special notes section. This is this will really only be utilized if there's certain items regarding the call that you need to be aware of. If it's blank intentionally, so don't freak out. Here are your talking points. We've listed them out here for you. Again, the additional attendees as well. And then here's the meeting notes section that I talked about was so important. So I'm going to dial into this number, do the access code. I'll take part in the call. And as the call is going on, you can even take notes shorthand, right? Needs more information. Wants us to follow up in 2 weeks, right? I'll click Save Notes, and then it'll refresh your page, and you'll see the information that you put in there in the text box. You don't need to do anything further than that. So I have a call here at 10:10, so that means I'm calling in at 10:05. Okay, I'm calling in at 10:05 because my meeting starts at 10:10. You'll see here this one's at 11:15 with Ward Blunt's office, so I'm calling in at 11:10 to make sure I'm prepped and ready to go. Again, confirmed 12:10, Senator Hawley's office. I'm talking with Daniel Kishi. And here, some of you may see, because we have about 300 meeting requests right now, there's about 50 or so that are outstanding that we're cleaning up today and tomorrow and Monday. But if you see a requested meeting at the bottom of your schedule, that means we're still working on a time. So currently we're still working with Rep. Ann Wagner's office on a time. Just keep checking your schedule over the weekend. We'll be working through the weekend and then periodically Monday. And if we do confirm a time, it will slot itself appropriately into the schedule based on where that time is. Everything is in chronological order, so you don't have to be worried about going up and down, up and down. Everything's in order by time, and then all of your pending meetings are at the bottom. But at least when you log in today and tomorrow, you'll be able to see all the offices that you will be speaking with, so you can prep for that. And that is essentially it. Are there any other questions that have come up while I've been speaking, Emily?
I'm just looking through the question channel now. A lot of questions about the next part of our conversation. Some questions about Mountain Time and Central Time, but again, I think Lincoln was very clear that the schedule that you see in your personalized meeting schedule access point that Lincoln has on his screen is in Eastern Standard Time, because these are folks from the DC offices that we're speaking to, so they live in Washington, DC. I can't answer, I don't know the details about if your state participates in daylight savings time or not, but it's really easy to just Google, you know, if you put in 10 a.m. DC time is what, my time, and Google will automatically answer that question for you, and you can adjust accordingly. And especially for the folks on the West Coast, I know I have a couple meetings that are 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern time, which are like 7 a.m. my time. So again, if those times don't work or you have a conflict, just email the Prime Advocacy team, and we're juggling schedules as best we can to make sure everyone is accommodated with your needs as best as we can. Again, I just wanted to emphasize, it came up earlier, there are some folks who may only have one meeting because the Senate meetings are too big. We've done our best to make sure everyone has a solid representation of meetings. And one other thing I wanted to point out in the team lead section, Not every meeting has a team lead. Some meetings are very small. There are only 2 people. So we didn't think it was necessary to designate a lead for smaller meetings. I think we're all wonderful, compatible, collaborating adults, and we can work that out in the smaller groups. The team leads are mainly identified in the bigger groups, which are 4 or 5 or more, so that they can navigate that process. And I will go into a slide later that outlines a little bit more information about the team leads. Let's see, I'm just looking through the questions really quickly. Yes, well, we did lose you for a bit there. Definitely, thank you. I'm sorry about that. I think the rest are really into the details of our issues. So I'll just pause here and if there's any other questions that folks have specifically about the meeting access process, your user panel, and sort of the details of logging in or calling in, now is the time. So I'll just give it a quick moment, see if any other questions come in on those areas specifically.
One thing I will add, Emily, before we move on is in the talking point section here, as I mentioned earlier, you'll see a phone number here for Prime Advocacy. We're going to onboard that tomorrow. So you'll see that as a new item here in terms of if you're having trouble with your schedule, you can call us from that number. Call us at any time. In terms of, like I said, if you're not going to be able to make it, or if there's any technical issues with your conference call line, you will see that number there. If the staffer needs to rearrange their schedule and your meeting gets changed, you will get an email or text message from Prime Advocacy telling you about your new time. So don't worry about the day of, having to check it every 5 minutes. If your schedule gets changed, we will let you know. So if you want to, in the morning, check your schedule, lay out your day as is, you really won't need to check it again unless you get an email or a text message from us. So just keep checking your email and your text messages the day of for any updates from Prime Advocacy. But otherwise, when you log in here on April 21st in the morning, your schedule pretty much should be set in stone.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm getting some questions on what is Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Standard Time would be the time that is currently being used by everybody on the East Coast. New York City, yeah. So I don't know how that impacts, because I know again, people are concerned about whether or not daylight savings time is considered in that. It's whatever time the city of DC and the city of New York are currently using right now. That's the time that that we're referring to. So folks are correcting me. Apparently that's Eastern Daylight Time. My apologies.
Yeah, so it's 6 o'clock here in DC, and it's 3 o'clock where you're at, Emily. Correct?
Yes, so here in California and Los Angeles, it's 3 o'clock, and in Washington, DC, it's 6 o'clock. So that's the time difference that you're looking at.
All right.
Excellent. So if there's any other questions regarding the tools, then I think we'll go ahead and let you go. Thank you, Lincoln, for joining us and walking us through the amazing toolkit that Prime has provided for our community. Again, Lincoln is available, and Oz is his team. The phone number will be in your meetings, and also the email address is on the information we sent you. So as soon as you know, if you cannot make a meeting, I have to emphasize the 2 things to really emphasize is if you, for any reason, cannot make a meeting, please let our scheduling team, Lincoln and myself, know as soon as possible, Carolyn or Kara, who's our primary contact, so that we can make adjustments and make sure your meeting is covered or canceled if we must. And also really emphasize call in 5 minutes ahead of time to give you a little bit of time in case the lines are busy, also to coordinate with your teams. And I got some questions about the meeting notes section. So as Lincoln demonstrated, the meeting notes at the little chat box at the bottom of each meeting. And that blue Save Notes button will, in fact, save your notes. And then if you want to update your notes and add more information, you just type it in and hit Save Notes again. And those notes go back to our team here back in the office, so that we can then know what follow-up your particular meeting need, and we can handle all of the staffing needs to support your efforts. So I think those are all the questions in that area. Again, Lincoln, thank you so much. I'm sure I'll be in touch with you over the weekend. Have a great night. And from there, we'll slide back over. I'm gonna, unless there's anything else you want to touch on, any last final thoughts you want to share with our community here?
No, just that you all are experts and you're going to do a great job on Tuesday. Our team will also be joining the office hours tomorrow if there's any questions that come up overnight or after this is over with. And so we'll be able to answer them tomorrow as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All righty.
So I'm going to switch back over and take control. There we go. All right, so now we're going to dive into where a lot of your questions have been driving towards. What are we asking for? What are the talking points? And what are we doing? Oh my goodness. So I see there's so many questions have been flying in about specifically the numbers and the details. We're going to go into all of that and making sure that we give you a comprehensive scope of all the different pieces that are happening. So we'll start with the overall ME/CFS Advocacy Week. So we've been talking a lot about your specific congressional meetings, which are all taking place this coming Tuesday, April 21st. But for those of you who have participated in the DC events before, you know there's a lot more that goes on than just talking to our members of Congress. One of the most exciting things that we have is our Empower ME Summit, which is a second annual event where we try to create workshops that provide you with really helpful real-world information to help you navigate your day-to-day life with this terrible disease. So I really wanted to flag that for you. So here on your screen right now, you see a schedule of all of the different events that we're hosting. Again, really want to highlight the Empower ME Roundtable this year, which is navigating public and private disability insurance with ME/CFS. I got to listen into the panel planning their discussions, and it's going to be so helpful. I'm just thrilled that we can bring you guys this resource. Or bring everyone this resource. The second item I wanted to point to is our online actions. So obviously Tuesday is ME/CFS Advocacy Day. That's the day that you're going to be on the phone with your members of Congress directly to make our case. But we also, it's all about follow-up, as Lincoln just so eloquently described. You know, we're on call with Congress 24/7, 365. So these three follow-up actions that are the specialty online actions, I just wanted to highlight for folks who maybe Tuesday didn't wear you out and you still have a little bit of energy and would like to do a little bit more. So Wednesday, we're focusing on Twitter. Wednesday is Tweet a Thanks. So if you did participate with your member of Congress during a Tuesday meeting, we really encourage you to take to Twitter on Wednesday to tell them thank you. We have an amazing online toolkit this year where all of the actions are literally in one place on one web page. So you enter in your information and then you just scroll down and boom, 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 take all your actions. And that'll be pre-populating thank you tweets to make it really easy that you just type in your zip code and then it automatically populates a tweet that tags your member of Congress. So that's going on Wednesday, and the tool is going to be available all week. So if you want to do more or feel like you want to do it, maybe you have a different message, that's the place to do it. Also, just kind of highlighting for those of you who have been the social media gurus, there is hashtag ME Awareness Hour, which takes place every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so for those who are interested in taking part in that action, it happens every week. And that's a really good opportunity to merge those two events with our thank yous and the ME Awareness Hour. On Thursday, we're focusing on calling and faxing. So even if you just spoke to your member of Congress on Tuesday, Thursday is a great time to just ring them up again and remind them that we're still here. We're calling it Can You Hear ME Now? So that's taking place throughout the whole day. There was some confusion about the time. It says it's going all day, but that doesn't mean you have to literally be calling all day. It just means that sometime during the office hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, at that time, you can take an opportunity to call your member of Congress. And then lastly, Friday is the day we're focusing on Facebook. We're calling it our Facebook flood. And we just want to see all of the social media actions going on Facebook that day. Again, the social media kit is available and just went online today. It's called the Tweet DC Advocacy Kit. It has worksheets and checklist and sample posts and everything you need to do Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to the max. So that's an outline of our whole week of events that we've transitioned online. So just kind of zeroing in a little bit, again, the events specifically, obviously MECFS office hours tomorrow, our Advocacy Day office hours. Again, that's a whole window, a 5-hour window where our team is ready and available to take your one-on-one questions. Monday, again, second annual Empower ME Roundtable. Really excited for that event. We have some heavy hitters on our panel. And lastly, this is something we've also added. So we've added Empower ME office hours. And so this is for folks, there's a couple members of our panel who have agreed to take one-on-one free consultations and questions in a similar to our Solve ME office hours, but specifically on Empower ME. So there we'll have a Social Security disability attorney, and a ERISA private disability insurance attorney, and a member of the medical community also available to help you navigate disability questions individually. So all of those are events for MECFS Advocacy this week. And of course, this is a sort of a detailed breakdown of our Solve ME event. We're sponsored this year by our first year ever having sponsors, which is very exciting, by Bateman Horn Center and Cantor Law Firm. Both excellent resources for people with MECFS. One is a disability specialty firm, and the other, of course, if you haven't heard of Bateman Horn Center, one of the leading clinical care and education facilities in the United States on MECFS, led, of course, by Dr. Cindy Bateman, who needs no introduction, but she will also be participating on our panel along with Sharon Stevenson, who is a PhD, who, for those of you who participated last year, remembered she was just such a wonderful addition. She's one of only 300 board certified patient advocates in the country, and she is an excellent resource to help folks who are navigating our really difficult healthcare system at a really complex time. And of course, as I already described a little bit, our actions. So throughout the week, we'll be doing Instagram stories. For the millennials and the young folks, Instagram stories are 24-hour posts. They only last 24 hours, and they're kind of animated video or photo posts. So we're asking everyone to try and post at least one, more if you can, of these Instagram stories on social media, on Snapchat or Instagram. We actually have generated special MECFS Giphy stickers, which are these animated stickers you can put on your images, and we're really excited to have that as a really fun and interactive action throughout the week. Of course, as I mentioned, and as we are all here for, Tuesday, MECFS Advocacy Day, that is our big hallmark capstone event. Wednesday is Tweet a Thanks. Thursday is our Phone and Fax Day mobilization, and Friday, Facebook Flood. So that's just kind of gives you a summary of all the different things we're doing as part of MECFS Advocacy Week. And because we're going remote and we recognize that you don't have the support of our in-person staff team, we have generated 3 toolkits that we hope are really comprehensive and will answer, I think, a lot of the questions that have been coming up in the panel throughout the conversation. So as I mentioned, we have our online one-stop portal. We're calling it the Remote Action Kit. There's a link there, and of course we can share links in the channel as well. All of this is available at meadvocacyweek.com. That's their one-stop hub for everything you need. And that is a really great link to share with your friends to help them take actions easily. The Tweet DC kit, Tweet DC Advocate Kit is specifically for social media actions, and then our DC Remote Advocate Kit is specifically for call and fax actions. So all of those are resources that are free, available for download on our website to help you navigate all the different actions we have planned for you. Now, what you've all been waiting for, MECFS Advocacy Day. What are we asking? What are we doing? How are we doing this? And the short answer is we are asking to be included in the next COVID package that's being currently drafted by Congress. It's called COVID 4.0. It's the 4th piece of legislation that's currently being drafted for consideration in Congress. As you've been aware, there's 3 that have come before. The terminology on the Hill has been 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0 for the different legislative packages. They're also known as COVID CARES Act, which is the one that just passed a lot of financial support dollars just recently. But we're looking at 4.0, which from our best sources coming around, looks like it is actually being drafted as we speak and is expected to be passed in the middle of May. So we have about a 4-week period coming up to convince Congress that MECFS is important enough to be added as a financial support in the upcoming COVID 4.0 action. So this sort of brings up the question, why COVID-19? Why now? Well, for those of you who have been, like me, really overwhelmed and scared by a lot of what's happening going on out there, it is an unprecedented crisis that we're facing with this virus. And our government is not really set up to move big money quickly. In fact, our government is set up to do the opposite, to slow down money from being spent. So because our system is designed to be exactly the opposite of what we need it to be right now, all of the rules are being broken. Rules are now optional on Capitol Hill. Typically, there's authorization, then appropriation. Nope, that's not happening. Typically, there's hearings before bills. Nope, that's not happening. All of our typical playbooks for how legislation normally takes place is not really happening right now. So because our system is now, we're in the brave new wild west of legislation, we have a fast-moving opportunity to insert ourselves into COVID 4.0. And it's actually just really lucky that our advocacy day had been planned for the past 8 months to coincide with what happens to be one of the key legislative opportunities of the decade. So Congress is really focused right now on public health, which is something that we've had trouble getting heard before. And because of the way COVID is being shaped, the COVID 4.0 package is being shaped right now, it really plays to our issue strengths. We're bipartisan. We have concentrated, highly motivated champions in particular areas, and we are relatively low cost. Relatively being, we're not $2 trillion as was just passed. We're not looking for something that big, and a lot of the other initiatives are so big that it makes us a really attractive win. And as Lincoln described, Congress is looking for a lot of really good news right now, and we're hoping that we can provide that for them and be an opportunity for Congress to get a win, for them to meet an urgent need, and so that we can be politically savvy enough to take advantage of this opportunity. So in short, our ask is really simple. Last year we had 3 or 4 with some really complex breakdowns. This year, our ask is please support research funding for post-viral diseases, specifically MECFS, as an urgent COVID-19 response. I'll say it again because it's really, really straightforward. Please support research funding for post-viral diseases as an urgent COVID-19 response. That's what we're asking for. I've had a lot of questions over the week is MECFS really a COVID-19 concern? Yes, 1,000 times yes. MECFS is, as we all know, a devastating illness, but it is a devastating illness that has certain key hallmark features that connect with COVID in some personally, what I find very scary ways, but also some really positive ways, because we have this unprecedented opportunity with a lot of attention being paid to viruses for the first time to find some answers in what is a relatively unfresh or untouched scientific waters. So I'm going to dig into the summary facts that are that some of you saw and have been asking about, that were included in the talking points of your meeting schedules. I'm going to dig down into how exactly these facts and figures came out and why we're pushing them so hard. So the MECFS and COVID-19, the facts. MECFS is known for afflicting people with viral infections. This is something I think most of the community has understood, but is still not something that is commonly known outside of our community. I could have pointed to 100 different studies that document this, but instead I just pointed to a single quote, which is from Dr. Charles Shepard, a medical advisor and doctor who has MECFS in the UK. And he says, one area where there is a considerable degree of medical agreement, which we don't find often in our field, relates to what triggers or precipitates MECFS. Most people with this illness predate the onset of their symptoms to an infection, normally viral, but sometimes bacterial, from which they fail to recover. And this is a story I think all of you have lived and can express with amazing eloquence. The fact that you get a virus and you get ME/CFS, or you get a mold exposure and you get ME/CFS, or you get a bacterial infection or surgery and you get ME/CFS. But the fact is that over 70% of people with ME/CFS in studies are shown to have been triggered by an initial viral infection. And that's where we see a big concern with a new virus that is traveling very quickly around our world. I'm seeing some questions come up that people don't see the talking points. These are the talking points. Talking point number one, ME/CFS is known for afflicting people with viral infections. Talking point number two, fact number two, COVID-19 patients are exhibiting ME/CFS symptoms. Some studies show as high as 35% of people with COVID currently are showing ME/CFS symptoms and ME/CFS-like symptoms. There's two citations right there for folks to look at. One is, of course, a New York Times article that describes some patient experiences with these neurological symptoms, which will sound frighteningly familiar to many of you. The second is an actual pre-publication article from researchers out of Wuhan, China, looking at the neurological symptoms that are manifesting in people with COVID currently. And I'm seeing a question. Yes, these slides will be available after the meeting. We'll make sure they're on their website as part of the resources. And again, I really encourage everyone, when you have questions, www.meadvocacyweek.com. Hopefully we'll have all the answers you're looking for. I put a whole slide to this one because this is really important. Coronaviruses trigger ME/CFS. Fact number three. A 2011 study on SARS, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the virus family, SARS is actually like the granddaddy or grandmama of COVID-19. In a study looking at SARS patients 2 years after they got sick, they found that 17% of people who had SARS infections were still sick with ME/CFS symptoms 2 years later. That's scary. The closest genetic relative we have to COVID caused a 17% potential trigger rate of ME/CFS. Point number two, experts are estimating significant surges in ME/CFS cases following the pandemic. One estimate is as high as up to 3.5 million new ME/CFS cases in the United States alone in the next 36 months. That is concerning, very, very concerning. Point number three, as coronaviruses trigger ME/CFS, if COVID-19 behaves like Epstein-Barr, which is probably the most common trigger of ME/CFS, up to 9% of survivors could be permanently disabled by ME/CFS, and that's long-term diagnostics. Again, you'll see the citations from each article identified by the asterisks below. So this is, I am very scared about some of this information, and yet feel because it's scary is exactly why we need Congress to understand it. And again, these are a lot of details, and as Lincoln so eloquently pointed out, don't worry too much about the details, but the big underlined high points, particularly coronaviruses trigger ME/CFS. That's important. Fact number four, ME/CFS outbreaks have historically followed viral pandemics, such as the current COVID-19 epidemic. For those of you who have been in the ME/CFS field for a while, you've probably seen at one point the list of outbreaks. I have a link to one of those sources here. There's a lot of other sources that have been done over many, many years that demonstrate considerable outbreaks over time. The earliest one that I've been able to identify that was documented was in 1934 here in Los Angeles. And the most recent that's been documented was in 1996 in New York. So, you know, we have 60 plus years of research showing that ME/CFS outbreaks follow viral pandemics. Point number five, This one's not as well documented, but I think this is really well understood. Our frontline responders are not equipped to identify, diagnose, or treat post-viral neuroimmune disease, specifically ME/CFS, especially ME/CFS. I don't need to tell you all how the diagnostic process is failing horribly, and the horrible pain and suffering that delay and mistrust generates. But there's an example here specifically about a very human experience from one patient who was harmed by their diagnostic delay. And I think that's a good example of how to tell that story with a lot of heart. That's why I shared it here. But it's been well documented that our medical system cannot identify, diagnose, or treat ME/CFS. And if we're looking at a big surge of ME/CFS patients, that's going to be critical, potentially very dangerous to the functionality of our healthcare system at large. So those are the key points. That's a lot, and again, that information is the high points. Those 1, 2, 3, 4 those are the key ones. I provided all the information and research there to help you justify those points, but I really want you to not worry too much about the details. Stay on the high points, stay at the high level messaging. So our mission, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is we got to make the case. It's COVID now and ME/CFS later. We are currently working on a legislative strategy that incorporates us into the COVID package. So what we're really looking for is, because our champions and our amazing champions are in strong places to support this, we're not so much looking for someone to support this effort as not oppose this effort. So we're looking to smooth out potential opposition. And we feel that most opposition to this package is going to come from people not understanding why we're doing it. It's for people who don't know what post-viral neuroimmune disease is, for people who've never heard of ME/CFS. If they see that line item in the bill, they're gonna be like, why is this here? So our goal is to educate them so that when these members see the line item that includes what we're requesting is $60 million in funding, when they see that line item that comes out, they're not gonna say, boo, that shouldn't be here. They're gonna say, yes, that should be here. And so that's your job, is to provide enough information to these folks that we smooth out our potential opposition. Again, the key points of that is the severity of ME/CFS. We're not talking about something that's a minor disruption. We're talking about something that overturns your entire life. The viral connections, emphasizing that most ME/CFS cases come from viral infections initially, and there's a strong viral connection to ME/CFS. And lastly, we want to highlight the economic impact. And this has been particularly important for a lot of the conversations that are happening around COVID right now, because COVID 4.0 is really an economic package. And we've been told very clearly by staff that this is an economic package, and that research is not necessarily the first thought that comes to a member of Congress's mind when they think economic relief. So we're acknowledging that it's a little bit of a tough sell, because the immediate thinking is, well, research has nothing to do with economics. But as we in ME/CFS know, it really does. So highlight the economic cost that ME/CFS has had on your life. Unemployment or underemployment for those who have lost their jobs or are unable to work full time. Long-term disability. Obviously, that's why we're providing information to help people access those services, but they're not easy, and they're certainly not cheap. And increased medical costs. Obviously, these are all very important. And the reason why I say highlight the economic impact, I see some questions coming in about, can you give us those numbers? I don't want to provide those numbers, because I want you to provide that insight. I want you to share how this has been your journey. It has to be a very personal impact, so that can be extrapolated to a broader experience. So an example of this, and I often share my mother's story when I talk about using my story and how I do advocacy. I talk about how my mom was a small business owner. She employed 4 people. She ran a little production house that provided a lot of services to the local community, and created jobs and created wealth, and provided a lot of business support. She did commercials and training videos from everyone from the VA to the Department of Homeland Security. And then my mom got sick, and her business almost went under. The only reason it didn't is because, frankly, I moved home to help her. And if my mom hadn't had that kind of support, she would have lost her business. So that's a good example to show how one case of ME/CFS can impact an entire community financially, not to mention the direct financial impact to my family, me having to give up my career to move back home, all of those different pieces. So, so I appreciate that you would like to see some of those big numbers, and those big numbers are intense and scary, but we really want to focus on, as Lincoln described, that feeling they have when they walk away from the meeting with you, that they feel, wow, that was powerful. That's what we want. Your tools to accomplish this mission. Those of you who have participated in ME/CFS advocacy days in the past may have often been overwhelmed by the sheer quantity of information in the packets that we provide. Traditionally, we have little 2-pocket folders that are just crammed with as many scientific studies and information and stories, everything that we can get in there to try to educate Congress, right? But we're digital this year, and the packets aren't really going to work. And so we came up with a new system. We created an education video, which is actually being loaded and finalized right now. It'll be probably on the website by the time we're done with this call. And that is pretty much the only thing we're sharing in advance of your meetings to these members, except for the Solve ME COVID-19 congressional recommendations. This is a single 1-page document, and this is going to be our core purpose. We don't want to distract with any of the other details. Just if they have questions, if they're concerned, if anything is not clear about what we're asking for, it's in this document. And if the technology will let me continue to make this work, I would like to share that document with you. There we go. This is available for download on the website. And this single, basically 1-page document is exactly what we want every member of Congress to read. And that is pretty much our takeaway. So some of the numbers and questions about those details that came up, and I'm seeing from the question box, are here. So in short, these are numbers directly from the CDC. The virus COVID-19 is expected to infect 214 million Americans, cause the hospitalization of 21 million people, and potentially 3.5 million Americans may never return to health, resulting in an economic cost of over $48 billion annually for the rest of their lives. And these figures are simply taking our current economic data and applying it to the projected boom of ME/CFS patients following COVID-19. This is a quote from the gentleman who actually conducted the SARS study that I mentioned before. And he says directly in an article that the SARS symptoms were very reminiscent of CFS-ME. While the current COVID-19 pandemic is caused by a different virus, it's a member of the same coronavirus family, so it might also cause post-viral fatigue syndrome, which is what he's worried about and that we're worried about too. Of course, this is some basic information that a lot of you are familiar with. ME/CFS is classified as a neurological disease. It's known for afflicting people following viral infections. Again, these are the 4 talking points that we went through in detail just a minute ago. Number 1, some COVID patients are exhibiting ME/CFS symptoms. Some studies show up to 35% of patients are exhibiting these symptoms. Number 2, coronavirus can trigger ME/CFS. We know this from SARS. We know this from other members of the coronavirus family. And we're expecting in about 6 months, we'll know it from this infection as well. Number 3, ME/CFS epidemics have historically followed viral outbreaks. Again, this is something well documented that a lot of studies going back 60 plus years demonstrate. And lastly, our frontline responders are not equipped to diagnose and identify this condition. So the way we're framing this for our goals, and our goal is ultimately to get $60 million in ME/CFS research, is we're framing it that the NIH has grown the field and has some of the leading experts in this field. Say what you will about the NIH, and I will be very clear that I think they've done an amazing job as much as they can and have fallen short in a lot of other areas. But they have really, without the NIH investment, our field would be a very different picture, a very darker, more painful picture. So the fact that we do have the NIH collaborative resource centers, the NIH intramural study, All of these things are real good feathers in our cap that make us an attractive program for investment because we're doing it, we're ready, we can just add money and make it bigger and better and get it to where we need it to be. So I have authored a piece of legislation that we're shopping around that essentially does these 3 bullet points of items. It authorizes and appropriates $15 million a year for 4 years directly for post-viral neuroimmune research for ME/CFS. It identifies the research to focus on diagnosis, treatment, and risk factors. Diagnosis and treatment has always been a call from our community. Risk factors is new. Risk factors is what really ties us in to a preventative measure, which is what will, I think, and I hope, will make Congress feel more compelled to support this, because we're talking about finding risk factors that will prevent and hopefully avert other folks from having to suffer the same fate. Of course, the focus is specifically on ME/CFS. That language is actually in there, specifically ME/CFS. COVID-19 patients exhibiting ME/CFS exhibiting ME/CFS symptoms and survivors of COVID-19 with ME/CFS. I just want to say, and as I was writing this, I really struggled. I don't in any way, shape, or form want to belittle or exclude our current patients with ME/CFS. Obviously, you're suffering today and we need answers now, and that has not in any way taken away from our efforts, and that will continue to be the core of what we do. But focusing on survivors of COVID-19 with ME/CFS, if they get treatments for people who get ME/CFS as a result of COVID, those treatments will still help you too. That's my hope. And so that's why we've written it this way, again, to help direct the urgency of the funding to where we need it, but knowing that if we find treatments for these patients, we'll get treatments for everybody. Lastly, we do put some stipulations on how the NIH should spend this money. I know there's some heavy concern with a lot of just cause that the NIH funding has not been executed in a way that we'd like to see, has not been executed in a way that we feel is truly helpful. So we've put some parameters on the way this money is spent to make sure we're streamlining the money to where we need it to be. So those 4 areas are post-viral neuroimmune data collection, expanding and adding new collaborative research centers to meet the COVID-19 related goals. Of course, expanding the intramural study to add COVID-19 patients. I think that scientifically that is going to be a gold mine of information. And lastly, as we all want to see, disease-specific funding announcements with set-aside funding. Truly, truly essential to our growth in the field and our future as on our scientific journey to unravel this illness. So this single 1-page document is pretty much the key element of what we're asking for this year. Everything goes back to this document. This is our ask in 1 page or less. Obviously, on the last part, there's some contact information, and of course, all the citations here as well. And this is available for download on the website. So now I'll get back to the, oops, went too far. Now I'll get back to the rest of the presentation. Again, the congressional education video will be available on the website. Your best tool is going to be that document and your story, because that document's very cold, it's unfeeling, it's numbers, it's scary, but it's numbers. Those numbers may not seem like much when ME/CFS is not considered a dangerous or concerning ailment. So your role and your most important part is going to be connecting those numbers with a human experience. So your story is key. So I'd like you to spend the weekend sort of thinking about, and this is the way I've thought about it, and maybe this is helpful for you as well, thinking about the person who got COVID yesterday, who doesn't even know they have it, and in 2 weeks they're going to get sick, and in 8 weeks they'll maybe get better, and in 3 months past that they're still sick. 6 months after that, okay, maybe they got ME/CFS now. What does their journey in your town look like? How was your journey when you had to walk that path? Has it gotten better? Is that patient in 6 months from now going to have a better experience, a worse experience, the same horrible experience? That's what I need you to share with your congressional team. They need to understand that we have never appropriately treated this disease. And if we continue to appropriately mistreat it with a whole lot of new people getting sick, it's going to be disastrous. Lastly, your tool is your support team. As I mentioned, you have Lincoln and Caroline from the Prime Advocacy team, all things schedules, meetings, timing, online tool, that's there. I'm here to support, but that's them. They are leading the charge and they're doing an excellent job. Everything for advocacy, that's me. We got 2 office hours. You have 10 hours potentially to come and chat with me directly. I also, of course, my email is available, and I'm going to do my best to be there every step of the way to make sure you have every piece of information you need to feel comfortable and maximize your meeting. And of course, social media and tech support. We have our general mailbox, which is solvecfs@solvecfs.org. We have doubled our monitoring of that email box. We have the whole team standing by. So if anything that doesn't meet either the advocacy component or the scheduling component of your advocacy day needs, either social media, tech, or something else, feel free to drop a line there and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. All right, so because your story is so important and it's one of your most important tools, I want to just take a minute to drill down into what your story looks like. As I mentioned, I'd like you to take this weekend to sort of think about how your journey, if you had to make it now as a COVID patient, what would be different, what would be better, what would be worse, and what resources can Congress consider or think about to help make that ME/CFS journey better. And even more wonderful would be is if we can try to stop people from having that ME/CFS journey at all. So these are 3 examples that I sort of highlighted as I was thinking through telling my story. How delayed or misdiagnosis impacted your health. Would it be just as hard or as worse for a patient with COVID-19 right now in your area? Financial impacts, as I mentioned before, we really want to highlight that. The economic priority is key right now. And so economic impact is going to be probably our strongest case to make as we convince legislators of the importance and value of ME/CFS research. And last, the long-term outlook on your life with ME/CFS. This is, I will admit, probably my mom and I talked about it by phone over the weekend, probably the most painful thing to share. And my mom actually told me that I shouldn't even put it on there because it's so painful. But I think because it's so painful is why we have to share it, because that pain needs to be known. These members need to understand exactly what's on the line for a lot, potentially a lot of people. So that's just kind of a drill into the story. Lastly, the focusing. One of the things that I found really challenging in my advocacy meetings is that our need is so great. There are so many things that the ME/CFS community needs, and there are so many ways the government could potentially be helping our community right now, from medical education to telehealth to paid leave to disability supports. I mean, I could do an entire dissertation on all the different things that Congress could do to help us right now, but we gotta keep our eyes on the prize. So focus on your emotional human connection with these members and staff that you're speaking with. Focus on the ME/CFS and COVID-19 facts. There are 4 of them. They're in your talking points. Focus on those. Refer back to that highlight key document that I showed you earlier when you have any doubts. That is our single-minded focus. Focus on your story, experiences that would be shared with COVID-19 survivors, and focus on the action. We need Congress to support this inclusion in the 4.0 package now. Things I don't want you to worry about. Don't worry about the numbers and the details. Again, refer to the materials in your staff, or if they ask a question you don't have an answer to, put it in your notes and I'll get back to it and follow up immediately with the staff directly. Don't worry about the broader ME/CFS field challenges. We know there are so many. Diagnostic codes, tilt tests, accessibility of medication, FDA-approved treatments, drug development. I could go on and on. Don't worry about the field challenges at this point right now. Don't worry about definitions or acronyms at this point. Close enough is great. If you can't remember exactly what the acronym for the program that the NIH is doing with the CRCs. Is that it? The CRCs? Don't worry about it. Again, just describe where you're trying to get to and move on. If you don't get the exact terminology right, no big deal. Other issues that I don't want you to worry about. MECFS is our single focus. MECFS research is our single focus. Just as a little bit of background, because I've had a lot of emails about these different things and people asking why aren't we talking about them. The nonprofit sector as a whole, paid family leave, disability expansions, telehealth, the new conversation about a private market for drug development investment, legislation about medication and supply shortages. All of these things are really important, and I do not mean to belittle them, but every single one of those issues that SolveME is supporting has, and I don't think I'm exaggerating here, has thousands of other organizations, in some cases hundreds of thousands of other organizations with much bigger budgets than ours, tackling all of these issues, and they impact us and hundreds of thousands of other people as well. But we're the only ones talking about MECFS, and that's why we need to focus. So while as tempting as it might be that you have your congressman's ear, and paid family leave is a really important issue to you, God bless you, carry on, do it on your own time. This is the only chance we have to mobilize for this issue. We're the only voice right now for MECFS in Congress, and we need to maximize that. All right, so we have one ask, but I kind of rewrote it in 3 different ways in case you just want to repeat it. And this is actually really helpful. I find, like, I always find help asking the same thing in different ways can be helpful. So the first one that we talked before, please support research funding for post-viral diseases, specifically MECFS, as an urgent response to COVID-19. Number 2, oops, they went a little faster than I meant to. If unchecked, the current COVID-19 pandemic could drastically increase cases of MECFS. We must fund research to find factors and educate medical professionals about the risk of MECFS in COVID-19 survivors. Last but not least, MECFS is an urgent public health concern since it can be triggered by coronaviruses and is a predominantly post-viral disease. Different ways of all saying the same thing. Really take action for MECFS in the upcoming COVID package. So I mentioned earlier, we're going to do a quick note for team leads. It can be really hard to be a team lead for a call like this, especially the bigger groups. So if you're concerned or having some questions and you do sign in and see that your name is the team lead person and you're like, oh no, what does that mean? I'm gonna help you out a little bit. So the role of a team lead, this is something that a friend of mine shared with me many years ago, and I've always have come back to it, is that you're in air traffic control, you're not a pilot. The pilot is the one who's flying the plane and directing it which airport it's going to, avoid that cloud, avoid that mountain. The pilot's handling that. Air traffic control is sort of sitting back and making sure all the planes don't run into each other, right? Pushing Tin, that old movie for those who enjoyed it. So when you're a team lead, you're your own pilot. When you have your opportunity to share your story, you pilot your story and you pilot your message the way you want to pilot your message. But as the role for a team lead, for helping others, you're not piloting for them, you're helping them not run into each other. You're the air traffic control. So if someone's going a little long over time, especially in the big meetings when time is so precious and short, it's okay to kind of gently just say, hey, just a reminder, like a minute longer, we want other people to have time to speak. If somebody is talking about maybe something that someone else already mentioned, you can kind of jump in and say, hey, Jody already shared that point. Maybe we can you talk, and then prompt them. You want to talk about the economic impact of your disease, something to bring them back into our key points. So air traffic control, not a pilot. One thing we also want to flag for team leads is if the contact information for your members of Congress, we'd like to flag, especially for the big groups, to ensure that either at the beginning of the call when you're kind of opening up, or maybe at the end of the call when you're closing, just double check that you get particularly the email address of the staffer you're talking to and add that into your notes function on your website. Lastly, or not lastly, but most importantly, giving everyone an opportunity to speak if they want it. So when you dial into your call about 5 minutes ahead of time, there are some people who this is their first time, they might be a little shy. Invite them to participate in the conversation. If maybe they're getting a little overrun or get interrupted, you might want to just say, hey, can we let Sadie finish before we move on to your turn? You know, just a little bit of that, just like kind of management. Again, it's a lot harder, and this is something I want to be sympathetic and empathetic with, that when you don't see each other, we're not in person. So a lot of those cues that we usually rely on, you know, looking over, seeing if they're ready, or kind of like, you know, making a face at somebody, all of those non-visual or visual cues that we give to each other, we don't have that same communication available to us when we're doing just by phone. So so just making sure, especially because, you know, maybe folks get overexcited and we really run and don't realize how long they've gone. We just want to make sure everyone feels like they have the opportunity to be included if they want to. Time management, of course, is one of the keys, always being aware of the pressing time. We did, and everything has been, and I've been told multiple times by everyone I've worked with, that everything is really on this 15-minute schedule. I don't want to disagree with Lincoln, but I will say what I have noticed in 4 years now of doing ME advocacy meetings on the Hill is that when we make a connection with a staffer, they make time for us, which is wonderful. And so I don't want you to feel that if the staffer is willing to listen, that you just need to hang up because your 15 minutes are done. So especially for big groups where time is going to be a little bit more precious, keep an eye on the time, but I don't want you to just completely shut off the conversation because, oh, 15 minutes, we're done. If that staffer is sounding like they're going to give you 30 minutes, push for 30 minutes. And that's going to be a hard line to walk, and I recognize that, and I apologize in advance for the team leads who I'm not going to try and sugarcoat that it's going to be easy to magically know what the right time of the buzzer is, but just keep it, keep it a little in the side of your mind as best as you can, and don't feel too restrained by the 15-minute time frame, and feel free to go longer if the staff is willing to let you. Last item for team leads is the wrap up and thanks. I've noticed in my meetings, there always seems to be just sort of a natural tipping point, and I think it sort of organically comes to a point when the meeting is ready to close. Hopefully it won't be closed abruptly because of time limitations, but the staff will be very, they'll let you have your final thoughts. They'll give you sort of the 5-minute warning, if you will. So when you reach that kind of closing out, I just want to emphasize, make sure you say thank you. Again, be nice, but especially in this time, folks on Capitol Hill are having a really rough go of it. So the fact that we've gotten as many meetings as we have really demonstrates our past success, that we're willing to be heard. And so definitely a lot of thanks to many, many offices who are really kind of going above and beyond for us in this difficult time. Invite any final input. If there's maybe, back to the giving everyone an opportunity to speak, if there's maybe someone who didn't get the same amount of time as other people, this is a good opportunity to just invite them to share any final thoughts they want to touch on. And then of course, before you wrap up, make the ask that one more time. And here it is, one more time, just in case. Please support the recommendations of Solve ME to provide research funding for post-viral diseases, specifically ME/CFS, as an urgent COVID response. That's not, I probably, now that I'm reading it out loud, I probably could have written that better, but it's still the goal. That document that I pointed to earlier as the key document, it is called the recommendations of Solve ME regarding COVID. So again, that's refer to that document, refer to the need, and that is our core that we're hoping to do. I did include this one last slide, but I know we're running a little short on time, which drills down a little bit into exactly what our legislative package looks like. I'll just leave this up here for a moment because we did cover a lot of this before, but I'll just add that we do have authorization and appropriations language written in a bill form that's basically ready to go that reflects these, but it's not it hasn't been approved. We don't have a champion, and there's probably a lot of edits on the horizon. So if you are specifically asked to share language, we do have it available to share, but I would not offer it or push it out at this time because I expect there will be many, many more changes before before we cross the finish line. So just wanted to let you know that that is a resource that's available as needed. All right, and that brings us to the end. And I've seen so many questions come in, and I know that there's still a lot to cover. And again, some of these questions that I'm seeing are a little bit specific to your state needs. I would encourage you to come back tomorrow during our office hours so that I can work with you one-on-one for kind of what your state might uniquely need. But I'm just going to try and focus on the broad questions that will apply to everybody at this time. So, whew, boy, there's a lot of them. Let me just kind of fly through. I'm going to start with some of the questions that I got earlier that I didn't have the opportunity to flag, and then move on from there. Oh my goodness, and my questions aren't working properly. I'm sorry for this. Let me see if I can get this so I can read them, because reading your questions is the most important part. All right, so I'll start with some of the data questions that came in during the conversation about how we got to the talking points and why. Again, a lot of scientific effort went into these. We're still one of the frustrating things that we find with ME/CFS all the time is that our data is not as comprehensive, as big, or complete as we would like it to. And so that challenge has continued even in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. So a lot of your questions are some things that we just don't know right now. Things like Epstein-Barr co-infection rates that somebody asked me, or some of those other things. Like time will tell. And I think that will really help shape your messaging in your congressional meeting, because the fact that we don't know is part of the problem. The fact that we can't give you a straight estimate about a pre-genetic factor for COVID-19 and ME/CFS. Like, we need to find that out, and that is vital information for this public health crisis. So, so my recommendation, I see, if you happen, like I just did, to get a lot of these questions that are really in the weeds of the research, first of all, you can always just write them down and deflect them to me, and I can do that research and get back to them. And secondly, I would circle it back to, that's part of the problem, that we don't have that information, and we need that information, and our healthcare providers need that information, and our first responders need that information. And the fact that we don't have it is highly concerning, and it's going to hinder our effective response to COVID-19. Let's see, another question I got was, do we exchange contact information or follow up, or is it just the leader of the group? Again, as I mentioned earlier, we have very, very clear privacy policies about sharing personal information outside of the individual who shared it with us. So one way that we've been working on this is, again, that I really encourage you to use the Facebook page. It's a great opportunity to say, like, hey, I'm on the Lowy meeting at 3. Is there anyone else there? And then you have some of your group names on there, so you can kind of correspond that way. And then I highly recommend doing direct messaging if you're going to share your email address or phone number, because again, that is a public group, and I don't want you sharing that private information on the internet. Who knows what spam you'll get? But that's a core element to coordinate. And also, if you'd like to share your contact information with your group, and we have your permission to do so, please send me an email and say, I would like you to share my contact information with my group, and then I can then share that with them, and then they can choose to reach out to you. And that way I'm not sharing anyone's information without their permission and protecting your privacy and your data. Let's see, more questions coming through. Lincoln mentioned that we should offer to be a resource to our legislator and staff. What kind of things might they be needing from us, and how exactly can we help? That is a great question. Thank you, Judith. One of the things that I really like to, it's one of the things that makes me happy to share with you all, is I like saying that you're my bosses, and you are. In a lot of ways, I am staffing you, just like you are the head of a CEO, fancy company, or the bigwig lobbyist who has an entire research team behind them. I wish I could be that awesome for you, but you have me, you have my team, you have the Prime Advocacy team, and we are here to help you. So consider us your staff, consider us your resource. And so if the legislator asks for for specific things, or you think, hey, you know, unrest would be really relevant to this conversation, we should probably share that with you. Just again, I encourage you to share those ideas, your creativity. So many great ideas come from patients. I can't even begin to count how many, you know, how much I look really great because you guys give me good ideas. So put that in your notes section and just say, hey, as we were talking, I thought this was a good idea, and I think you should share this resource. Or you know, again, if they have a specific question or those scientific research rabbit holes to fall down, just put that in your notes and let our team handle it from there. I don't want you to feel the pressure of having to know all this information. That's unfair to you, and it's not what you need to do. I really want you to focus on your story, focus on the emotional connection. That's the best resource you can offer in this context. And if you're interested in, Judith, I don't mean to call you out, but your question makes it sound like you're interested in taking this on in the future. If you were really inspired by this experience and you really want to be more involved, or maybe be a congressional contact, hit me up on email and let's talk. For those of you who are at Advocacy Day last year, we talked about the launching of our partner program. It's still upcoming. It's been horribly delayed by COVID, but we're looking for folks who might be interested to be inaugural members of that partner program. So that could be something we could talk about on a one-on-one basis. So great question. And again, if you have further questions, Judith, about kind of what it means to be a resource, let's talk in the office hours or email me directly. And again, for everyone, my email is E, like Emily, Taylor, Taylor, at solvecfs.org. Okay, getting into some more scientific questions. I noticed that, this is a question, I noticed that this says 35% of COVID patients are exhibiting ME symptoms, but has enough time passed to really know that? I thought that months have passed for a diagnosis. Excellent point, Nicole. I'm gonna go back to that slide just for a moment so that we can really look at that. There we go. So COVID, oops, I didn't mean to go forward, there we go. COVID-19 patients are exhibiting ME/CFS symptoms up to 35%. So where that data comes from, and again, there's the 2 links down there that you can follow if you want to really dig in. It comes from the neurological symptoms that are being reported, which are, if you read them, terrifyingly similar to ME/CFS. Brain fog, cognitive concentration issues, in some cases word loss, or temporary paralysis that some people with ME/CFS have experienced. I mean, it's some of them are the more extreme sides of ME/CFS, but they are ME/CFS symptoms. The downside is that, as we know, ME/CFS symptoms overlap with a lot of other ailments, particularly our neurological symptomology. So I'm very comfortable by saying they are ME/CFS symptoms, but they are not exclusively ME/CFS symptoms. They are predominantly neurological symptoms. In fact, there's been I didn't share the links here, but if you want to message me, I'll share them with you privately. There's been some reports about the virus penetrating the blood-brain barrier and causing a lot of havoc that way. There's been actually some reports that the breathing and respiration problems related to COVID-19 are not exclusively coming from the lungs, but also coming from the brainstem, when the virus has actually, on a neurological level, hindered breathing. So there's a lot of this is sounding, I'm sure, very familiar to those of you who are, you know, a lot of theories of ME/CFS are about viruses penetrating the blood-brain barrier. You know, the vagus nerve hypothesis exactly correlates with that. So when I say that up to 35% of patients, that comes from that second study there, neurological manifestations, and their report shows that up to 35% of patients who are severely impacted by COVID are exhibiting these neurological ME/CFS symptoms. And you can read the descriptors there. The other thing I'll add regarding the ME/CFS symptom tree, I guess, is I'll sum it up, is, again, it's not exclusive to our disease, but the canary in the coal mine that we use to describe ME/CFS is very accurate in this particular case. These symptoms are, so as a lot of neurologists and experts are writing about them, are sort of the red flags of long-term health impacts. The other interesting thing that comes out of that particular study is that they associate the severity of the initial illness with the longevity of the symptoms, which is something that we've also confirmed in ME/CFS research, that the worse you're sick initially, sometimes the longer or the worse your symptoms are in the long run. So that's just, again, it's just kind of like all the little boxes are getting ticked as being in both categories of a COVID-19 symptom and an ME/CFS symptom. So great question. Thank you for that one. Moving right along. Gosh, you guys, I think I answered a lot of these questions in the talk, but I hope that that if you still have any more, please keep them coming. Ooh, here's a tough one. Is it bad to get emotional, not angry or upset during the call? Our stories are important, but are our emotions counterproductive? That is a great question, Josie. And my answer is, I don't think your emotions are ever a bad thing. It's only how you express them that can be a bad thing. Let me, back to your story. I'm not embarrassed to say that I've cried in a congressional office. I've talked about some of the worst parts of my life and my mom's life to a total stranger, and that, you know, I can't help it. The tears come out. But just now I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about some of those hard times in my life when my mom was really sick. I mean, I get choked up just remembering it. So I think the answer is how you express those emotions. If you're cursing and screaming and accusing this person of being a bigot or discriminating against ME/CFS, that's not gonna be a good way for that outlet to make a meaningful contact with that member. But if you're choked up and about a memory, or if you're scared about the impact of COVID or what COVID is gonna mean for your life and the uncertainty that I know so many of you must be facing right now, you know, that's fine. Own it. That's real. And I think that's authentic, and you should share that. It's how you share it that becomes the challenge. So I think, you know, one thing that I often say in these calls is correct with kindness. That's sort of dealing with anger specifically. I've had the you're tired too, I'm tired too, or the, you know, some of those just horribly dismissive remarks that just make you want to scream and strangle all at the same time. And the answer is how you express that emotion. So don't worry about getting emotional. That's fine. But when you express that emotion, that's where I would just keep that thought in mind, that we're going to be working with this legislator, you know, in terms of the Senate, 6 years, maybe longer, in terms of the House, decades maybe. So we don't want to burn the bridges, but that emotion is real, and you shouldn't try to minimize it or hide it. Just deliver it in a way that's going to be effective. Great question, Josie. Thank you for that one. Oh, here's a great question. Do congressional offices have recommendations? Yes, they will. The 3 pieces that and we've only limited to 3. The 3 items that your congressional office will receive in advance of your meeting. Number 1 is our educational video. Number 2 is that highlight document, the Solve ME COVID recommendations. And number 3, and this is just for administrative purposes, is a copy of the appropriations request letters that were sent earlier this year. That's just, every office kind of expects to see that. They just kind of want to know what you've been doing recently. It's kind of considered best practices that you always include your most recent congressional action as part of the materials with your meetings. Oh goodness, I just realized we're over time. I am so sorry. So I'm going to be taking just the last question really fast here. And then I'm so sorry that I know there's a lot that I didn't get to, but please join us for office hours. I just want to be respectful of your time, and I apologize profusely that I already went over time. I just didn't realize I had such a good time with you all. Let's see. Oh God, there's so many good questions. This is like choosing my left arm or my right. Okay, I guess I think I'm gonna settle on this one. Oh, this is so good. Okay, so this question is, are you recommending that PDF leave behinds at the meeting or follow up with an email afterwards in 2 weeks. I'm looking for a little more guidance since my rep is new and probably doesn't understand MECFS. Great question. So just again, we'll be sending that information in advance, those 3 pieces of information at the outset. And again, those pieces are the appropriations letters, the educational video, and our recommendations. So those are going to be out all together. I think the follow-up, first of all, always send a thank you follow-up. That's the first one. And if you have any immediate information you can share in the thank you follow-up, that's a great place to do it. But I always like the additional check-in, especially if there's a relevant news item. So that's, I think, an excellent strategy. And Sandra, thank you for posting that question, because I think there's a lot we can do there. Perhaps it would be helpful if about 2 weeks after these meetings, I sent you all a sample follow-up message that you could then share with your members of Congress. I unfortunately can't see you all to see if that's a good idea, but we'll just kind of see in the questions if people think it's a good idea real quick. And if that is helpful, then I will go ahead and do that for you all. But when you do that 2-week follow-up, which is, I think, the hallmark of your question, like, do you leave the information behind or do you follow up with it? I think this is one of the areas where you have to trust your instincts a little bit. Unfortunately, when you meet somebody in person, you get a much better sense of who they are. But when you kind of feel out the phone call, hopefully you'll get a sense, and if the staff is, genuinely interested in what areas they tend to ask questions on. I'll share one example. I was taking a meeting with a member of Congress, and I was sharing the story of how my mom got sick. And they started asking me a lot of really pointed questions about my mom's onset. Did she throw up? Did she have a fever? Did she feel like her toenails were falling off? Like, really specific questions. And I finally asked the gentleman, is there someone in your life who might be experiencing this? And they said, yes. So my follow-up information was all like for a new patient or a new caregiver. I didn't send them anything about our advocacy stuff. I sent them, here's the primer, here's a diagnostic guide, here's our online quiz to see if you have MECFS. So I think you kind of tailor it to the conversation. If you get a really heavily science person who's really into those statistics and those numbers and those peer-reviewed 17 attribution research papers, we can give those to you and you can share those. If you get somebody who's more interested in the social services side, sort of what are the disability limitations? What are the guidances for Social Security? We can give them that too. So I think when it comes to the follow-up, I would, yes, I would absolutely, they'll get those 3 items. Immediate follow-up with a thank you note. Yes, absolutely. And as for the 2-week follow-up, I would, and again, you will have access to your notes as well afterwards. I would keep that in mind as you take your notes for the meeting. And if there's a particular area of the conversation that seemed of interest, you would tailor your follow-up in that area. Thank you again for that question, Sandra. So I guess we'll wrap up here. I am so sorry I went over time with you all. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you are safe. Hope you are healthy. Hope you are sane in everything that's going on. And again, my deepest, deepest, deepest thanks for all of you for expending your precious energy and your precious time to be with me here today to walk through these issues. I look forward to speaking with you all one-on-one tomorrow, and of course on Monday as well during our office hours. And I hope you all we're gonna get through this together, right? Stick with us, and we're going to get through this together, and hopefully the silver lining of this horribly dark cloud will be expanded research for MECFS. Really excited for this opportunity with you all. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe out there.